Hey, how you doing? So, JavaScript is the most popular programming language in the world today and for the foreseeable future. And it's not because it's the best. There's no such thing as the best programming language. That does not exist. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. So, why is JavaScript the most popular language in the world today? Well, because it's the only game in town in terms of the web browser. So that gives it a nice stable base to work off of. And because developers had this weird idea that somehow having the same language on the server and on the client, that's the web browser, client is the web browser, since they thought that was better, JavaScript has been widely implemented to work on the back end as well, on the server. Back end is server with Node. So yeah, there you go. That's the main reason why. Now, it's also a very light and nimble language. It's not verbose like we see in Java, C#. Not that I'm picking on Java, C#. And there you go. So the problem with JavaScript, though, is that it's a huge mess at the same time. You got 100 million frameworks to choose from. A new framework comes out every 0.69 seconds. And of course, that new framework is the best framework since sliced bread. So I'm Uncle Steph. I've been developing for 3 decades, for longer than you've been alive, probably. So I'm just going to give you my ancient nerd's perspective on JavaScript. So I went looking around on the interwebs, so you don't have to. And we're going to look at some data with regards to JavaScript frameworks and so on. So buckle up because it's going to be not very interesting. All right, so I started looking around and within about 15 minutes I fell asleep. But I did get some good information. So let me just jump into the first site here. So we got this Lambda test site. So I give them a little shout out because they put out this very thorough article. I have nothing to do with them though. I don't know if their product is any good, but this article is interesting. And we'll look at others. So 27 best JavaScript frameworks in 2024. So let's look at some data in terms of popularity. So here's a survey. As per the State of JS 2022 survey, here are 8 best JavaScript frameworks. So it's from 2022. Anyway, no, it's, yeah, up to 2022. So you can see, I don't know if, let me see if I can zoom in here. So you see in 2016, React was 53%, Angular 20%, Ember 14%, Vue 10%. So we're going to zoom forward to 2022, and I believe the trends have continued. You see React is by far dominant, 82%. Angular 49%. I'm surprised it went up, to be honest with you. It actually went down from, it peaked in 2018, 2019, so it's actually on the way down. And you can see on the top blue here, React is actually, it's hovering around the same for several years now. Vue, Vue.js, which was at 10% in 2016, it's really jumped up. Went 10, 22, 32, 47, 49, 51, back down, 46. So anyway, so you got these other frameworks as well. So what you have to do as a developer is you're going to have to learn every single framework that's out there because they're all the best. Okay, you don't have to learn every single framework that is out there. If you want to get into advanced JavaScript development, my advice is concentrate on your fundamentals of JavaScript first of all. You have to know the core language. You have to know core DOM manipulation. Then back up. Look a little bit at Node, maybe spend 2-3 days on Node.js. And then once you got your head wrapped around that, just the basics. I'm not saying you're not going to be an expert at Node in 2-3 days, but you're just going to get your head wrapped around the basics if you understand the foundations of JavaScript well enough. So the next thing you do is you jump into, I would pick maybe the top 3 frameworks to spend 2-3 days on each just to get your head wrapped around them so you kind of understand what they are all about, right? Again, all these JavaScript frameworks, I would consider these need-to-nerd technologies, meaning you only learn them when you need to learn them based on jobs. So you see here the top 3 right now, well, in 2022, and I'm sure the trend is about the same, is React, Angular, Vue. So I would spend 2-3 days on React, 2-3 days on Angular, 2-3 days on Vue. You're going to see you're going to learn these pretty quickly. Again, the basics. I'm not saying you're going to be an expert, at least, but you can understand. And if you feel so inclined, maybe look at Svelte and Ember and others. I wouldn't go down into the weeds here with these other ones. I wouldn't spend too much time. You don't want to get caught up in tutorial hell, by the way. You don't want to be continuously researching and so on. Again, pro developers, they learn their fundamentals. You may learn one library, one framework rather, one library, and then you just want to get into the game. You want to start building web apps, websites. You don't want to be a perma student. That's not the way to go. Developers in the first 3 to 4 years is when you really learn the craft. You get paid to learn these things. That's a good thing. So in this article, they say React, also known as React.js, is one of the best JavaScript frameworks in the front-end category. It is an open-source front-end JavaScript library created by the team at Facebook developers, blah, blah, blah. React introduces a component-based, functional, and declarative programming style for creative interactive user interfaces for mainly single-page web applications. React delivers blazingly fast rendering, making use of virtual DOM. So they go into it. I will skip those details. So let's see what they say. Pros of React. It's component-based, reusable components. That's good. Easy integration of the front-end and back-end frameworks like the popular PHP framework Laravel to work seamlessly without a hitch. Direction data flow. Main difference between React JS follows a downward directional data flow architecture. This ensures that a child element cannot affect the parent, making the code more stable and less prone to errors. All right, simpler syntax, that's good. Virtual DOM, okay, cool. SEO, all right, so it's SEO friendly. Yeah, that makes sense, because what's SEO? SEO is short for search engine optimization. Traditional single-page applications, because the URLs were hidden, it would be difficult for Google. Let's face it, that's the only search engine that people really pay attention to for the most part. Google would have a hard time indexing these things. So with modern JavaScript frameworks, they create URLs that Google can use to better snarf up your website, so it can so you have SEO, right? Yeah, let's go back. Continuous improvement, rich community, that's huge. So yeah, let me just comment on that. When you're looking at any technology, you have to look at its adoption by the community. You don't want to find yourself using some super hyper niche tech. You may think it's the best tech since sliced bread, but if nobody's using it, you're going to have less and less support over time, and then you're going to find yourself abandoned, this tech being abandoned, and you're going to have websites or web apps based on a technology that is no longer relevant, no longer being supported. That's big trouble. I've been there. Don't do that. Make sure that there is a good community backing a particular technology, whether it be JavaScript or any technology, really. Don't find yourself in some hyper niche tech. So the community is a huge part of it. It's one of the first things I look at. I look at community support. So what are the cons? Although JSX is simpler syntax, that is easy to read and comprehend, it might present an additional learning barrier, okay? Many developers feel React has a much steeper learning curve and bloated complexity than key rival frameworks like Vue and other best JavaScript frameworks. Yeah, I've talked about this many times. For my learning SaaS Studioweb, we use Vue for that reason. React is often plagued with complaints about poor documentation and cannot catch up with the new releases and features, forcing developers. Yeah, well, this is a JavaScript thing. When you have what's the word I'm looking for? Not an environment, but when you have a tech that moves so quickly, documentation is often a problem. Don't undercount that, by the way. Oftentimes what makes a particular technology useful is how good the documentation is. So don't undercount that. I stress that. I've seen it, again, firsthand. Documentation is huge. So lots of big websites use React, right? Airbnb and so on. So the next one's Angular. So Angular, open source framework by Google. So Angular is more, I would say it's enterprise. So in 2022, they say Angular has ranked as the #2 front-end best JavaScript framework in the State of JS 2022 survey. So it's a survey. I'm not sure what the usage rates are. Stack Overflow developers in 2023 said Angular was ranked 5th for front-end JavaScript frameworks with 17% positive response. So it's quite big. Angular registered a massive 3.5 million weekly downloads on NPM. NPM is the Node Package Manager. It's the way you share libraries in the JavaScript world. So they give you the pros here. I'll put the links below so you can read all this stuff yourself if you're really bored one day. Get up. So what's this cool? Component-based, cool. Server performance, cool. MVC, I like MVC. MVC is a design pattern. It's short for Model View Controller. It's just a way that you organize your code into logical chunks. And it's a language called Smalltalk. I think it is Smalltalk invented that design pattern way back 200,000 years ago. And yeah, everybody's adopted it. I'm a big MVC guy. I was doing that in the 90s with even classic ASP, but mainly in Java. All right. Two-way data binding. One key feature of Angular is two-way data binding, which forms a link between the model layer and the view layer in such a way that each one reflects the change in the other. However, other rival frameworks have adopted a one-way data binding for simplicity. That's, again, a lot of times when you're looking at specific features of a framework, the thinking behind how the framework works, oftentimes the choice between one or the other depends on the type of app you are working on and the needs of the app. So that's why I say you learn the basics of, let's say, the top 3, so you can, again, not become an expert. Just don't spend months on this. Spend a few days on each. So at least you get an idea of what's going on here. And you may say, okay, for this particular app, Angular might be better. Or for that particular app, React might be better, right? Massive community, third-party integrations. Generally speaking, from my understanding, Angular is really for big, huge websites. React can be used on big websites, but it's actually more approachable. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at these things closely in years, so take it for what it is. Cons: TypeScript. To use Angular, you must use TypeScript. TypeScript is it's basically a modified JavaScript, if you will, strongly typed, which makes it more secure, amongst other things. Apparently, it poses a big learning challenge to new developers. Yeah, TypeScript is a big barrier to entry and explains why Angular has struggled against Vue and React and Vue. If you know your JavaScript well, you should be able to get into TypeScript pretty easily. It's heavy and bloated. Yeah, that's how it was back in the day. So heavy, bloated, 550, 600 kilobyte file, not good, which might not be suited for small scale applications. As I said, Angular is more of the enterprise level stuff. You're looking at heavy duty websites. Poor SEO, no SEO. So yeah, it's more, that to me, heavy, bloated, poor SEO. I would see, maybe I should show you this. Heavy, bloated, and poor SEO. To me, that screams enterprise development, mean huge organization, not so much for selling product, not for light nimble sites who need to sell product, and it's for enterprise level application, banking sites, that kind of stuff. Vue, this is what I use. This is what we use in Studioweb. Open source, lightweight framework. Okay, let's look at stats. Always like stats. Vue has been placed at number 3 in the list of best JavaScript frameworks for front end in the State of 2022 survey. So this is a survey. This is people's opinions, right? So that really tells you that it's probably the 3rd most used. 46% of JavaScript devs currently use Vue and pledge to keep using it, while 50% have shown keen interest in using it. So lots of Vue, boom, 4.8 million weekly downloads, so bigger than Angular. Strongest ace of Vue is simplicity. Any React or Angular developer can pick up Vue in a heartbeat without breaking a sweat. Yep. The structure of Vue is simple and enables you to code more with typeless syntax. Vue uses a single file component system, meaning that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript reside in a single file for any given component. Built-in MVC, all right, like that, easy to learn. Boom, 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 very cool. You see, one thing you have to understand as a developer, when companies are looking at technologies, they look at a lot of factors, but one of the factors they look at is how easy it is to get people, new developers, trained in a particular tech. That to me is a huge issue, especially for smaller companies. Like my businesses are all small businesses, and so small, easy to learn, lightweight technologies is what I always look for, amongst other things. Another key advantage, it's surprisingly lightweight given the size of its impressive prowess. Zip version of Vue is barely 18 to 20 kilobytes. That's pretty small. Much lighter than the bloated, bulky rivals like React and Angular. So that to me is huge. I like that. It cannot be integration. It cannot only be used to create applications from scratch at a blazing fast pace. It could also be integrated into existing web apps seamlessly without any trouble. Yeah, Vue is, I think it still is like its default. It is the default framework or library for PHP Laravel, which is the dominant MVC framework for the PHP communities. Cons, small community. So it doesn't have the backing of Facebook, Google, like React and Angular, but Vue has indeed managed to create a community of backers. On GitHub, Vue has 360 plus contributors, which is decent, but nowhere close to the ranking React enjoys at 1,600. That's still pretty good. I think you're pretty good. I think you're pretty safe with React. Limited employment opportunity. Yep, you got to look at that. Like any technology, I always tell, of course, Adobe uses it, Apple, Swift UI, Laravel, Nintendo, Stack Overflow. So you got a lot of BMW. So you got a lot of big companies that use Vue. So I think you're pretty safe there. Ember, open source, good, scalable, single paid web page for business, model view model. Architecture is the foundation for Ember. Unlike other frameworks we have discussed, Ember was originally a Sprout Core 2.0 framework that was renamed Ember by its creator, Yehuda Katz, an accomplished developer created as one of the chief creators of jQuery. One of the most adored and key features of Ember is Ember Command Line Interface Tool, which a productivity powerhouse. Not bad. Even though Ember is an older front-end JavaScript framework compared to React, Vue, and Svelte, it still packs a punch. It has a big user base with major companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, Twitch. Okay. Ranked number 4 in the JavaScript frameworks in this survey here. What are the cons? Steep learning curve, no good. Highly complex, no good. Highly opinionated. Opinion senses any deviation from things in a standard way might lead to frustrating problems. That's no good. Stagnation in popular software stagnation over the last few years, failing to attract new developers. So, anyway, I'll stop there. I'll just link to the article. So I hope I'm providing some value in this stream. That's not a stream. So let's, I have another site here. And so here's a visual presentation of, so number 1 is React, 2 Express, 3 Next, 4 jQuery, 5 Vue, 6, what the hell is this? Vite. I never heard of Vite. Anyway, so this is a visual representation, I think a plot of JavaScript frameworks. So they have a nice summary here. I'll put the link to that one as well. React, Angular, Vue, Ember, Backbone. So same cast of characters. How many JavaScript frameworks are there? About 800,000. So I wouldn't get too concerned about them all. Which are the best JavaScript frameworks to learn? Yeah, I would say learn the basics of React, the basics of Vue, and learn Node. That would be my choice. And then from there, you'll be able to assess all the other frameworks very, very easily and comparatively speaking. So there you go. That's an overview of the JavaScript frameworks. I'll give you my 2 cents of how to approach it. Don't let it overwhelm you. Remember that there's no developer out there who knows more than 5% that's going on in a particular, maybe 10% in a particular ecosystem. I can tell you there's no JavaScript developer who knows all these frameworks well. You might never actually use one of these JavaScript frameworks, by the way. And if you do, you might use just one, maybe two in your career. So don't get too caught up on this. The key, again, is just to understand the raison d'être, the main reason for a particular framework. So somebody will come up with a framework and say, I put out this framework because I want to solve this particular problem. So understand that for maybe the top 3 frameworks. Maybe have a scattering of understanding of some of the secondary frameworks so that when you come across a project, you can make that decision. That being said, if this is much more important for freelancers or entrepreneurs where you're developing an app and you have a lot of control over decision making in terms of what JavaScript components you might use or not use. If you're just getting a job, look at the job market, look what's available out there. So again, do those 3 as I suggested. And then React, Vue, maybe Angular if you want to work for enterprise and understand a bit about Node. Again, don't spend too much time. You don't want to be on tutorial hell, but just understand what's going on there. And then when you start looking for jobs, as I said, in many videos, study the prospective employer, look at what they're doing, and bone up on whatever technologies they need from you. So you find out their React house and they use this, that, and the other thing. Learn that. Reorientate your resume to emphasize your JavaScript skills. Don't BS though. And then if you do get the interview, you can go in there with up-to-date knowledge about whatever library or whatever aspects of React or Angular or Vue that they happen to be using. And this will maximize your chances of getting a job in terms of the tech end. That all said, apply to jobs where you have skills that align for that job, right? So if you don't know anything about React and you start applying for React positions, probably not a good idea.